let me choose a couple of pages that I had seen before. So let me know in this one, what do you think works good and what could have been improved based on layout and typography? Yeah.
I feel like the pictures, the two pictures on the right are kind of not on a grid, maybe, or like a bit random.
Okay.
In terms of, or they're not on the same grid, maybe.
Okay, that's a good point. It seems that if you were to draw a line from this corner up, I might have some words out, right? So yeah, it looks like it's a little bit outside of the grid. I don't know if it's the text or the image, but they're definitely not aligning perfectly, right? And that doesn't mean that we cannot have a different use of columns. Let's say use 3 columns for text and then 6 for an image. That will be fine. But just keep in mind that if I were to draw a line, I really want that to align perfectly, because visually, even though we don't know what grid was used, we can detect it with our eyes, even though we're not even conscious of it. So that's a good point. What do you think worked well in terms of typographic hierarchy?
The color.
The use of color to create emphasis, right? So we have color on the title, and we also have a different type of font. Maybe it's not as large as what one would want for a title, but it's big enough that I know that's the title of the article. It grabs attention. Here, well, I'll say that later, but we also have color for the quotes, and we have a different type of, a different style of lettering. Here we have the italic, well, here we have the regular one. So that really creates hierarchy, and also the fact that it's repeating throughout the article gives me a sense that, okay, they're taking out from the article and presenting this information back to me. I can easily navigate through the quotes, which is what I usually do when I first open a magazine. It's like, oh, let me see what they're saying, and if they're interesting enough, then I'll go back and read the whole thing, right? So that's a great use of color, font style, and size to create typographic hierarchy. And the other thing I was going to say is it's wonderful to have large pictures. Sometimes we can even incorporate them in the overall design. For instance, we can place the title right on top of a picture if we made it wide. It was an example that I saw here that I want to show as well. But here, since the color of this image is so close to the color of the title, they kind of compete a little bit. Because the picture is very large, right? It's kind of the first thing that I see when I open the page, and it's right below the title. So I kind of lose the title a little bit, right? So those are elements that could be improved by maybe making the image a little larger, but bring the title next to it or on top of it, like it was presented here. I really like this layout for the front cover here. So here I made the image and the title kind of part of a whole composition. And that's really good to do because you have a lot of flexibility in the page of your magazine that has the title of the story. We saw that example with the white space page that I had on my presentation. You really have a lot more flexibility, and this already makes it a really attractive article to look at, just by having this integrated into the title, into the image. And there is enough contrast, right? You have this block that really lets me see what's going on here. And this is also when we were talking about orientation, this is a good example of how orientation can be used to break the grid and catch attention. Okay. Let me see. There was this story. So what do you think works well and what is not working as well in this story, in this layout?
I think it's perfect.
I know. I'm thinking the same thing. I like it too.
Okay. So I think, what do you like about it? Why do you think it's perfect? What do you think works well? What we are talking about here is layout, which is placement of elements on the page, and typography.
the images,
Mm-hmm.
they really convey a point, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's I like the angles and just the, I guess, the energy from the first one.
Mm-hmm.
I get it,
Yeah, for sure. And that's a good point that I decided not to cover in my presentation, which is use of images and the selection of them, because I thought in general it was really well done. Like all the images that were used in the whole magazine were very telling of the stories. But besides that, I love what was done here in terms of a grid. So here I can see a 3-column grid, which is great, but I decided to use basically half of the page and all the columns for the image here. But here I did something a little bit different. I used only 2 columns for the image. And that, the fact, even though this image doesn't go all the way to the side, I had the same amount of white space on both sides, which creates a really nice to look at story, article page, and it's easy to navigate. The letter, the font used for the article is easy to read. There is a lot of text, but they also gave me a really good font, so I felt okay reading it. I think in terms of what could have been improved, there is a lot. We should avoid having so much text together, just because sometimes we get tired of reading. It's good to give the eyes a break. So having a quote or something highlighted out of this, even if it's just placed here, that just breaks the monotony of the page a little bit, or of the text, I will say, because the page is not necessarily monotonous because we're using images. So that would be the only recommendation for that one. Let me know if you want to talk about a specific article, since you guys are here. Okay, for this one, what do you think works well? What could have been better?
What I would have changed with that one is bringing that second photo down to the bottom right, because those photos are kind of competing with each other. But it was hard to see how that was going to lay out when we're designing it separate on each separate page, you know, unless we printed it out and then put it next to each other.
That makes sense. Yeah, because you didn't know if this was going to be on the other side. Oh, that's a good point. That's a really good point. And those are definitely things that we have to think about when we're designing. Usually, designers use this program called InDesign that allow us to move pages individually and kind of arrange them and play with them a little bit, so we can see that live. But I understand that point.
And maybe do the title in a color.
Yeah.
To make it the hierarchy that you're talking about.
Yeah, that was my main point here. Again, I can see that's the title, but it doesn't necessarily grab my attention. The fact that these pictures, like, not necessarily black and white, but they have a darker color scheme, makes it just less attractive to the eye, right? So highlighting the title in a color would have added that pop that I needed to see to actually, oh, let me read this story. It looks interesting, you know? It's like, yeah, they're talking about something serious and important, but it looks like the Silicon Valley alternative is something that is innovative, that is breaking the rule, right? That is kind of out there. And then we have that title that doesn't necessarily convey that. Not the title, not the words, but the font, the color, right? Okay. Cool. I think I have to, but if you guys have any questions? Yeah.
Can you criticize mine?
Yeah, for sure. Which one is it?
The other way is the part. No, the other way.
Oh, sorry.
That one.
This one? Okay. Well, I already mentioned that cover page is probably my favorite, or that the face of the story. Let me see. Okay. I think this page here is pretty amazing, pretty well done. What I like about this is how you created you gave the reader a lot of breaks to read and process your information by having you didn't have a long block of text, you have just enough text, you have a quote, you have a transitional picture, which gives the reader time to reflect on the information that you're just giving them, and then you end up with another a small block of text. And then you have this is called an action box, right? Or you're inviting to action, or you're providing additional information that is important, you want to grab that attention. And I like that it matches, I mean, this is I'm super geek on color and matching colors, but the fact that this color is close to that really brings unity to the page. Okay, so
I saw the professor. She great recommendations. Like honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I see. Well, well done.
But I was just nervous about that space in between that box and the text.
Here.
Yeah.
Yeah. You were nervous about that because you wanted to cover, but it was so successful to leave blank space there. Why? Because that actually leaves my eyes a space to move there. So white space actually doesn't, it creates a break, yeah, to process the information, but it also creates a pause to continue. Like here, see, like if I didn't have that break, if you had text up to here and here, it might be harder to read that information than it actually is when you have leading spaces. You're leading the reader to the information that is below or above the white space. So it was really, really well done.
Thank you. Is there a time where space does not work?
Yeah, there is a time where space does not work. So there is another principle of design that is called proximity, and you really want to cluster together information that is related, right? So if you had I don't know, just a crazy example here. If you have this box maybe on the top of the other page, how would you know that this is kind of related to this? It's difficult to find that out. If you keep reading, you're like, oh, okay, I get it. But you want to be able to tell it right away, right? So yeah, you wanna still have our way to the principle of proximity, that is elements that are clustered together belong together. And we kind of grab that just by looking at something real quick. So yeah, that's a good question.
All right, thank you.